Hello, everyone. Another day, another week, actually, and another news update from me. Thank you all for joining this show and during the live stream itself. And of course, many thanks to all the members of our community who will watch this video later on. I try to publish a couple of clips from this live stream for members that don't really have time to watch whole video. And also, I have an announcement, dear friends. As I promised yesterday, and because many members of our community did ask me to make a second live streams on time, which will be more convenient for members of our community from North America, I'll try to do it this week from Monday to Thursday, at least. Hopefully, it will work out, and that is, I will have a first live stream during the first half of the day, approximately 12 p.m. Moscow time, 1 p.m. Moscow time, something like that. And second live stream will be then at midnight, at 12 a.m. midnight. Hopefully that timing will be more convenient for members of our community from North America that want to join the live stream itself. Let's see. If it will work, sir, good. I'll try my best to maintain this schedule. But if results not gonna be positive, then I will go back to usual schedule that you are familiar when I have one live stream on YouTube and Rumble in the first half of the day, and then second update almost every day, every weekday, work day, by the way, on a Patreon and Boosty. Okay, dear friends, that means it is time to go through some news, of course. It's 2nd of February now, 12 p.m. Moscow time, and there is a lot happening, of course, that needs to be addressed because I think information that I'm choosing for live streams might help, and hopefully will help to have a better reading of the big picture. So, okay, that's been said. If any questions or the comments, of course, through support platforms, by the way, I will react on it after the news segment. And without further delay, let's go through some news now. And I will start with this report from RIA Novosti, which is based on Defense Ministry's latest update that past night, air defense systems on duty, Russian air defense systems on duty, obviously, intercepted 31 drones that were launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russian territory. I can give you some details on that. So report says that over the course of the past night, air defense systems destroyed and intercepted 31 Ukrainian fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles, 22 over the Belgorod region, 4 over the Krasnodar region, 2 over the Rostov region, and 1 each over the Astrakhan, Bryansk, and the Kursk regions. A relatively low number of intercepted drones and missiles, and whenever numbers are relatively low, that means usually that Kyiv regime and its NATO backers are stockpiling drones for massive launches. And so in upcoming days, we might actually see significant increase in this long-range attacks on Russia. But it's not just the drones, obviously, that hostile side, Kyiv regime and its NATO backers are using. MLRS systems, long-range artillery also actively used to bomb the Russian territory, especially neighboring regions with the zone of special military operation. And on this topic, I have this report that Kyiv regime's forces attacked Belgorod region alone, by the way, in the past 24 hours, 46 settlements. So 46 settlements of the Belgorod region were attacked. So according to governor of the region, Vyacheslav Gladkov, 46 settlements in 12 municipalities came under attack from Kiev regime's forces past 24 hours. At least 20 projectiles were fired and 108 drones were shot down and suppressed over the region during the reporting period. Various types of damage were found in 4 apartment buildings, 13 private homes, and commercial property. Equipment and 23 vehicles were also damaged in a Graivoron district, the city of Graivoron, the villages of Garkovsky and Chapaevsky, and the villages of Golochino, Kozinka, Novostroivka, Первое, Porez, and Rozdestvenka were subjected to fire attack using 20 munitions and 24 drones, 6 of which were shot down. In the village of Golovchino, 4 people were injured when a drone struck a car. A man who was in a serious condition died in intensive care. The remaining 3 victims were hospitalized at the regional clinical hospital. Doctors are doing whatever they can to save their lives, and unfortunately there was more strikes on the Belgorod region, and we have also from Governor Gladkov this statement, governor of the Belgorod region, that 2 people were also killed in a drone attack in Stary Oskol. Let me give you details on that. So 2 people were killed when a drone struck a private home in Stary Oskol, Belgorod region. Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov announced this on a telegram. He clarified that the drone's impact on the private homes started a fire, causing a building to partially collapse. Rescuers recovered the bodies of 2 people. Moreover, according to the governor, the detonation of another drone shattered windows in more than 10 apartments in 3 apartment buildings. A car was also damaged. So as you can see, dear friends, it's a daily occurrence, basically. Unfortunately, on literally on daily basis, Russian civilians being harmed, many of them killed as a result of this. I'm quite sure intentional terrorist attacks on civilian areas, and I have said numerous times before, by the way, that a major ally of Kiev regime, London, specializes, British ruling class, British intelligence services, militaries, they are specializing on terror campaigns, right? We all know that, and I have predicted a very long time ago that as a situation for the Kiev regime's forces deteriorates on the line of contact, London will prioritize terror campaign to terrorize Russian civilians, and that's exactly what's happening. And on daily basis, more and more people being killed and wounded, more and more civilian areas being targeted by these terrorists. Zelensky and his henchmen and their Western masters. And before I launch this live stream, dear friends, I see this commentary from a member of our community who was asking is if Russia is even in a position to defeat Ukraine on a battlefield. Let me highlight the question itself because I think it is important. Although I would reframe the question, if I may, it's not about defeating Ukraine, it's about defeating NATO, right? Western ruling class, and to force them to submission. That's what is going on, because if you pay attention to all these developments, all these crises, you know that Western ruling class was preparing Kiev regime and Kiev regime's forces for a war with Russia since 2014 coup d'etat. And in many ways, they somewhat succeeded. They bring in to control territory a lot of weapons. They trained a lot of military personnel, and they knew it was a matter of time, and they will provoke a war, right? They will launch basically proxy war against Russia, and that's what they did. And I think it is a mistake to think that this is a war between Russia and Ukraine. That's one point that I want to make. It's not. It's not, by the way, right? Also, we should keep in mind that Plan A of the special military operation, as far as I'm concerned, by the way, was somewhat successful. I would not say 100% successful because eventually it is become necessary to implement Plan B. But Plan A was somewhat successful, and in March, April of 2022, when Russian troops were on outskirts of Kiev, by the way, right, and in many other areas, Kiev regime agreed on the escalation on the Russian terms, right? Kiev regime agreed, and there was a preliminary agreement, and then Western ruling class get involved and derailed this agreement. So that's why Plan A didn't succeed. Otherwise, this special military operation would not last more than a couple of weeks. But yet again, after relatively successful negotiations in Istanbul, initially in Minsk, then in Istanbul, between Russian representatives and representatives of Kiev regime, Kiev agreed on the de-escalation, but Western ruling class get involved and derailed the peace, right? And from that very moment, no one can argue that this confrontation is not a war between NATO and Russia, because NATO spent, even before that, it was obviously NATO's proxy war, right? Launched in 2014, actually. But after these Istanbul talks were derailed by Western elites, well, how much money Western countries used to facilitate this war against Russia? Hundreds of billions, right? Some say overall number is $500 billion. Some say actual number is even higher, right? Up to a trillion. I did not count it. I don't know, but clearly we are talking about hundreds of billions, right? Volume of the weapons that were sent to Kiev regime by NATO countries, it's tremendous, tremendous. Number of NATO countries are demilitarized, by the way, literally demilitarized, right? Because they sent to Kiev regime almost everything they had. And I remind you that when a party of the current ruling party won the elections in Slovakia and Fico became a prime minister, new defense minister of Slovakia said it openly that Slovakia is quite effectively demilitarized. There is almost nothing left in Slovakian army for Slovakian defense. Almost everything was transferred to Kiev regime, and I'm quite sure somewhat similar situation is in many other NATO member states. So to say that this is a war between Russia and Ukraine is mispresentation of their objective reality. I think this is NATO's war on Russia. This is a Western proxy war against Russia, and that's how I see it, and that's how many other people see it, right? And if we will then reframe the question, is Russia in a position to defeat NATO, to force Western ruling class to submission, and why this has not happened for 4 years now? Yet again, I'm not military expert, by the way, but I pay attention to developments. I grew up in journalism, after all, and if I do anything, I read, right, and I learn. And so if my opinion means anything, then I will say Russia definitely is in a position to force Western ruling class to submission, and this will happen. This will happen. And why this conflict has lasted for so long? Then answer is on the surface, really, which is that Russian militaries were never trained to fight basically high intensity conflict with their hands being tied behind their backs. I don't think any military in this world is trained to fight the wars, by the way, high intensity wars, with their hands being tied there behind their backs. And what I mean by that is that, You can imagine that Russian colonels, Russian generals, when they go in a military academy, and even middle level officers, by the way, their study is based on what? Especially of high ranking Russian officers, colonels, and their generals. Their knowledge, their study is based on deployment of all the necessary tools that Russian army can offer, right? And to plan military operations while keeping in mind all the resources, all the means that you actually have or your country has, right? That's the basic training. So when you ask now Russian general who is trained based on Russian military capabilities, right? And when you ask this general that, you know what, you cannot use these weapons, you cannot use these weapons, you cannot target this, you cannot target that, you cannot do all sorts of things, but I'm demanding from you progress on the battlefield, then I mean, well, this gonna be quite difficult stuff, really, right, to achieve. Nevertheless, Russian military is adapted, Russian officers adapted, right? There were mistakes, unfortunately, there were tragic mistakes that caused losses, unfortunately, but Russian military is adapted, and despite their hands being tied behind their backs, they are achieving success on the battlefield, right? They are moving forward, and more settlements are liberated on daily basis. So only reason why this conflict lasted this long is because Russian political leadership, Russian President Vladimir Putin, refused to make their necessary, I think, political decisions to untie the hands of the Russian militaries, to allow Russian militaries and security services to use all the means, by the way, that Russian Defense Ministry can offer to deal with their enemy, right? And yet again, why Russian president is standing on this position is anybody's guess. I obviously don't know. I just don't know. But that's the reasoning, by the way. This conflict would never last this long if Russian militaries, Russian security services were allowed to fight with all the means they can deploy. But yet again, political decision on that never came. That's the explanation. If today Russian President Putin will make political decision and tell the Russian militaries and securities that, you know what, use whatever means are necessary and to finalize this military phase of their operation in next 4 weeks' time, I'm 100% convinced, by the way, it will take less. It will take less than 4 weeks. But yeah, I mean, such a decision, yet again, has never came, but until now, at least, right? And of course, when I'm talking about all the means necessary, I'm talking about nuclear weapons also. Let's make it clear. I'm talking about nuclear weapons also. I'm talking about elimination of military and political leadership of terrorist regime in Kiev, elimination of everybody who is in position of decision making there, right, with no exceptions. Total annihilation of logistical means, bridges, decision-making centers, energy infrastructure, total annihilation, by the way. It's a 4th year of the fighting, and only now Kiev regime is facing actual energy crisis. How is that possible even? Why not last year? Why not year before or year before that? Why only now? So you see, by the way, when I say that Russian militaries and security services are fighting with their hands being tied behind the backs, this is factual information. That's how it is, actually. And therefore, if anything, by the way, we should prize Russian militaries and security services for being this professional, right? Despite all the odds, they are managing to achieve success on the battlefield, right? That's how I see personally the situation. But I do understand why questions being raised many times, why this conflict lasted this long, and sometimes some people may don't really want to dig in, right, and truly understand what is going on. But if you try, then you will realize that yes, man, what you expect when you tie the hands of your militaries and security services, then of course process of their liberation of their peoples and their territories will take longer, obviously, right? And that's what we are observing. Something, dear friends, that I wanted to address, because every now and then I have seen these kind of questions, right? And I think this is unfair to Russian militaries and security services, by the way, right? This critical take towards them, and this is unfair, man. Imagine yourself in their shoes when you know you can do some serious stuff, right? But you have no permission to do so. And we are, we are in reality in which we are, by the way, and we have to do what we have to do based on this objective reality. Political decision comes if political decision will be made, then I'm quite sure it would not take too long for Russian militaries and Russian security services to finalize this special military operation. Let's continue with some other news now. Let's continue with some other news, and next is this report that I see on RT's Telegram channel that well, over 1,000 buildings in Kiev still remain without heater, according to mayor of the city, Klitschko. And officials now, especially in Klitschko's inner circle, are making statements like, for example, Maxim Bukhmatov, that dig trenches, don't run. That's what they want. And this person is saying this about Zelensky and his inner circle, right? And this is despite several calls from mayor of Kiev to launch organized evacuation from the city. But Zelensky don't want this to happen. He prefers people to stay in Kiev and suffer. And that's exactly what is happening. And yet again, tensions inside the Kiev regime is rising. Tensions are rising, and at some point, we might even see military clashes on the Kiev-controlled territory between different armed groups that are sympathizing different political groups. I think this is even inevitable at this point. And as I said, by the way, Zelensky has no care about people, obviously, and he went after Klitschko. Instead of actually organizing evacuation of the people, mass evacuation of the people, especially from the residential areas that for days have no heating, have no electricity. Instead of that, Zelensky is attacking Klitschko and trying to blame Klitschko for everything, right? Although, who cares, man? If you are ordinary citizen, resident of Kiev, do you really care which fault is this? All of them are guilty, right? All the officials there are guilty of what is happening. If you are ordinary resident, you want to be evacuated in organized manner, right? Especially if you cannot evacuate yourself, right? If you have no means, and if you don't know where to go. And instead of helping people that are facing some trouble because of the criminal activity of this scum of humanity, Zelensky and his henchmen and their Western masters, they are fighting among each other while blaming each other for everything. Vladimir Zelensky criticized their Kiev authorities' handling of their power grid outage, writing on his Telegram channel, and this is quote, repairs are still underway, and this certainly can't be considered a normal in a city where hundreds of homes have been without heat every day for weeks now. Regardless of their situation, he lashed out on a Klitschko. But yet again, this would not happen at all. This would not happen at all if, first of all, there was no coup d'etat in 2014, right? And that means that there would be no civil war inside the Ukraine when these Nazis that were implemented into power by Western elites when they went after Russian speakers, right? Straight after coup d'etat in 2014, by the way, and 10 years this civil war lasted before Russia get involved, right? Openly get involved and launched a special military operation. And according to different reports, more than 14,000 civilians were killed by these Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists in the Donbass during that period. So none of this would happen. And of course, none of this would happen if very same, this scum of humanity, Zelensky, and his henchmen ignored their Western calls or the calls from the Western elites, and they actually finalize Istanbul agreements in March, April 2022, but they didn't. So everything that is happening there is their fault and fault of the Western elites. And more people are waking to this truth, by the way, in Kiev-controlled territory also. Worldwide, but on Kiev-controlled territory too. But these ones, Zelensky, Klitschko, and all the other garbage, by the way, of course, they're going to try to blame each other now because, well, people are little by little but waking up and they're demanding answers. And, dear friends, there was an agreement that was reached between Moscow and the Kiev regime after Trump asked, basically, Moscow on energy truce, energy ceasefire. And this energy ceasefire stand there until 1st of February, until yesterday. And today, even though for now there was no official statements made either by Kremlin or any other institution, at least this morning I didn't see any reports on that. Different Telegram channels, and the other sources are reporting that this energy ceasefire seems like to be finished now. And past night, Russian militaries launched, allegedly, yet again, there was no official statement about it, but according to some sources, Russian militaries yesterday launched a long-range precise strike on energy infrastructure in Cherkasy area, and substation was allegedly destroyed. Videos are circulating about it, so probably it is true, but nevertheless, let's wait and see if we will have official statements on that. And I remind you, dear friends, that in attempt to prolong energy ceasefire, Zelensky postponed trilateral talks in Abu Dhabi. That was planned for 1st of February. Now, new date allegedly is 3, 4, or 4, 5 February. In few days from now, and I guess Zelensky and his henchmen were trying to postpone, to prolong energy ceasefire at least until 5th of February. And if last night Russian militaries actually targeted this energy substation in Cherkasy, then I guess Moscow didn't buy into this yet another trick of the Zelensky's regime. But yet again, let's wait what Russian Defense Ministry going to say about it. Is this energy ceasefire still in force or not? Also, I want to share with you this information, dear friends, from TASS News Agency, that according to military expert Andrei Marochko from LPR, and many members of our community are familiar with Marochko, of course, the Russian armed forces neutralized about 15,000 troops of Kiev regime in January alone. Significant losses, obviously, high losses, especially if you keep in mind that in January, due to transition of the weather conditions from muddy season to frosty season, intensity of the battles was relatively low on the ground. right? Now intensity is increasing little by little because ground is being frozen now, right? Muddy season is finished, and there is a possibility of a rapid movement of the military personnel and military equipment. But January was different, especially first half of the January, and nevertheless, according to Morocco, Kiev regime lost at least 15,000 military personnel during that month. Also, RIA Novosti is reporting that unverified Starlink terminals will be shut down on a Kiev-controlled territory. As you know, by the way, some Russian engineers, some Russian companies start using Starlink on the drones, on the strike drones, on the recognition drones, right? And we're using basically Western weapons against the Western and Western assets, right? And Kiev regime and Kiev regime's European backers were whining about it for quite some time now. And Starlink is, getting involved there. Elon Musk, that criminal, in my personal opinion, even bragged about dealing with the issue, and was waiting for applause from Kiev regime's defense minister, asking for applause. Basically, what a scum of humanity that Elon Musk is, man! Absolute garbage, right? But nevertheless, it seems like they did come up with some ideas how to disrupt Russian engineers from using their technology against them, right? And one of the ways allegedly are that Starlinks will not work. These Starlink dishes, by the way, terminals will not work if they are moving more than 90 kilometers an hour with such a speed. And also now another decision that was made seems like is that unauthorized Starlink terminals will be also neutralized, which means that Kiev regime will have issues too. Kiev regime will have issues too, by the way. Let me give you some details. In the coming days, we will publish instructions for Ukrainian users on how to register Starlink for verification. Unverified terminals will be disabled. The Defense Minister of Kiev regime, Mikhail Fedorov, announced. Mikhail Fedorov, by the way, Russian name, Russian surname, and this scum of humanity thinks he is a Ukrainian, ethnic Ukrainian, by the way. Unbelievable. That's how people being brainwashed, right? If you are English, right, and after, and suddenly in a couple of years time from now, if you start claiming that you are no longer English, but you are I don't know, man, Austrian. Not even Austrian, by the way. They are related, actually, English and Austrian in some ways. They're both can trace back their ancestry to German tribes, and not just German tribes. But let's say, I mean, you understand what I mean, isn't it? Today you are English, and after being brainwashed, if you start talking about, I don't know, man, that you are Chinese now, that's the same stuff, man. I mean, Mikhail Fedorov, defense minister of this Nazi fascist regime in Kiev, and someone that thinks he's ethnic Ukrainians and his ancestors, this Veliki Ukri, they were building freaking pyramids in Egypt, man. You don't know how psychopathic this scum of humanity is, man. Ukrainian Nazis, man. They cannot be rehabilitated, man. They have to be dealt differently, I think, and will be dealt as they deserve. It's only a matter of time. So Elon Musk and their other criminals from US are helping these Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists to deal with this Starlink issue. I guess Russian leadership Russian government has finally realized that we definitely need something like Starlink. And there was a project, by the way. There was a project, right? I have seen these projects years ago, right? There was even a testing, successful testing of the Russian analog. And I guess due to lack of investments, lack of interest, lack of support, those projects are still on a developing phase, right? Otherwise, why would we need a freaking Starlink, man? We are a space nation, right? Why don't we have a better system than Starlink? Why? Because some freaking bureaucrat who is most likely asset of the CIA blocked their idea on some phase. I mean, counterintelligence have to intensify its work, man. Counterintelligence have to intensify its work because too many fucking traitors are living in this country. Too many freaking traitors, man. And they have to be exterminated. Period. There can be no mercy towards the traitors, man. Bullet in the head, that's it. Commerçant newspaper is reporting that, French Foreign Ministry, meanwhile, called on the EU to create a direct channel of communication with Russia. Another one. Earlier, Macron was saying the same, that they have to talk with the Russian side. Now Macron's foreign minister is saying the same. French, even Italian prime minister or some Italian officials were on the same page, isn't it? That we have to talk to Russians. Recently, many people were surprised that even this ultra Russophobe Merz, German chancellor, start talking about necessity of some sort of connections with the Russian side. Okay. By the way, these criminals are so lucky, man, that Russian president is Vladimir Putin, because they are alive only because of Vladimir Putin. All these criminals, by the way, all Western ruling elites, all of them are live right now only because Russian president is Vladimir Putin. I don't know. Do they even understand how grateful they have to be to Vladimir Putin? They love to hate Putin. They love to talk all sorts of garbage about Putin, but deep down, don't really they understand that the only reason they are still around is because of the Putin. Because if I was president of Russian Federation or someone like me, all of them would be dead, man. 100%, million%, by the way, million%, right? Because they should be dead, man. None of them deserve to exist, man. These are scum of humanity that never deserve to exist. Fucking ошибки природы, ебать их рот поганый, блядь. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, reports that very same France, by the way, that is led by scum of humanity, is intensifying its terrorist activity in Africa. What a surprise, man. And this is reported by Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR. France is destabilizing the situation in unwanted countries, unwanted in the Sahel region, with the help of local terrorists and the Ukrainian regime, which supplies militants with the drones and the instructors. The press office of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, reported, despite their, and quote here, despite their failure of their criminal plan, the refined racists from Paris are not giving up. Oh, I like the language, by the way, of Foreign Intelligence Service. Yeah, they are, a little bit more direct, and are not playing no freaking polit correctness, right? Good, man. We should call them as they are: scum of humanity, racist garbage. That's the Western elites, not just in France, but generally speaking, all over the West. All of them. There is not a single human being in the Western elites, Western ruling class, that is a decent human being. It's not possible. So despite the failure of their criminal plan, the refined racists from Paris are not giving up. Their focus is destabilizing the situation in their unwanted countries of the Sahel region with the help of local terrorist groups and of course the Ukrainian regime, which supplies the militants with the drones and their instructors. Their statement reads, it is noted that their main attack is directed against Mali. SVR indicated that their attacks on fuel tankers, attempts to blockade their Malian cities, and the terror against the civilians serve the goal of their creating conditions for the overthrow of the President Assimi Goïta. SVR said, and also SVR, by the way, stated that French terrorist regime attempted to orchestrate coup d'etat in Burkina Faso too, and they failed. Right? So yes, is anybody surprised, by the way? Is anyone surprised that this terrorist regime in France is engaged in a terrorist activity in Africa? Of course, nobody is surprised, by the way. Of course, nobody is surprised. And of course, nobody is surprised that Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists have been used by Paris terrorists to engage, right, to train terrorists in Africa. It all makes sense, by the way, right? It's all freaking garbage is together. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, well, there is opposition voices now in Germany, maybe not as loud as one would prefer, but nevertheless, there is opposition voices that are warning everybody how devastating for Germany will be if Berlin will actually go ahead with their development of the nuclear weapon. And recently, by the way, all sorts of statements were made in Germany, in Sweden, in other countries, right, about development of their own nuclear weapons. So there is two tracks, by the way, that being discussed now. One is to basically bring in nuclear weapons from France and the UK. UK not going to be much help in this because they don't really have a mobile nuclear stuff. British nuclear forces mostly, by the way. Maybe they have some secret programs, but as far as I know, British nuclear arsenal is based on nuclear submarines, right? Vanguard-class nuclear submarines. And even then, these Vanguard-class submarines are using Trident missiles, which is American missiles, right? And to launch these missiles, they need permission from Washington. So UK is a nuclear power, but in a quite specific situation. France is different. France has a nuclear triad, actually. And France can deploy nuclear weapons either in Germany or in France or elsewhere if they want to. But also there is a second track that is being actively pushed now in Europe, including in Brussels, by the way, which is that, well, European countries, Germany and Sweden, for example, they have to have nuclear weapons on their own, not to be dependent on nobody. And of course, they are justifying these talks by non-existing Russian invasion plans and stuff like that. I wonder why nobody is asking in Europe, by the way. They've been promised that Russians are coming for how many years now? And why no one is asking? I mean, where are the Russians? Where are those scary Russians, man? I mean, you are telling us for 10 freaking years, Russians are coming. So where are they? Why nobody is asking questions, man? I don't know. But and recently, by the way, even in Brussels, statements were made that EU, European Union organization, EU is not even country, by the way, formally, right? It's organization. And in Brussels, statements were made that this organization has to have a nukes. What the hell, man? I mean, is there any limits to the degeneration of their so-called elites in the West? I don't know, but at least some people are opposing this madness, by the way. And Amando Mema, member of their Finnish Freedom Alliance party, criticized Germany's desire to develop nuclear weapons to deter Russia on their social media platform X. Russia has no plans to attack Germany or Finland, but if these plans to develop nuclear weapons are pursued, Russia's position could change dramatically. We must not change our security strategy in Europe. United States can remain our main guarantor of deterrence, he wrote. And so, yes, it's an opposition voice from Finland about Germany, by the way, not necessarily inside the Germany, although I believe Wagenherter, if I'm pronouncing correctly, Wagenherter, female politician in Germany, was also critical of this insane statements of the Berlin officials, including on matter of militarization. And I mean, I'm not sure about AFD, by the way. I saw a report about Wagenhert like yesterday or day before, but AFD, I don't know, but I think they also would be against transformation of Germany into a nuclear armed country, because they can do it, man. Germany has a latent nuclear deterrence. If they want to build nuclear weapons, they have a technology, they have means to do it. And of course, if Germany will become a nuclear weapon, it's not going to stop only there. Sweden will go ahead there to develop nuclear weapons, and when Sweden and Germany are nuclear, then Norway will say, I mean, we should also be nuclear, right? They will do, and that's going to be end of nuclear non-proliferation, for sure. And when it comes to war itself, by the way, I mean, yet again, this Finnish politician is correct. Russia has no plans to attack European countries, either Finland or Germany or, I don't know, Norway. But I think exactly opposite is happening. And it's the Western ruling class that has plans, active plans, by the way, to attack Russia, while sacrificing number of European NATO member states. First of all, ones that are neighboring with Russia or are close to Russia. Finland is among them, obviously. And that's why, by the way, every now and then there is a military exercises, NATO military exercises in Finland, right? Because one of the directions of NATO attack on Russia is Finland, right? From Finland. Germany not gonna stay out of this, obviously, because Germany is run by globalist puppets, of course. Baltic Chihuahua states, of course, not gonna stay away, because they're gonna be sacrificed first, probably, right? Because no one cares about them. Poland is in a high risk, of course, and a number of other countries. But if it comes to direct open clashes between European NATO member states and Russia, then in that case, I think, I mean, maybe, I mean, I don't know, actually. But I do remember what Russian president said recently, that if European NATO member states will launch a war against Russia, open war, then soon there's going to be no one left among European elites with whom we can negotiate the escalation. So it was a very strong statement from Putin, but yet again, I myself not sure, man. Is these statements of Putin means anything anymore? I don't know, because of his restrained policies, right? I don't understand it, and I'm not even going to try to understand now, because to me personally, it makes no freaking sense whatsoever, right? And if my education, my knowledge, my experience is not enough to understand this stuff, and I'm freaking 50 years almost, right? Then I don't think in a week time or 2 weeks time, I'm going to learn something, and my knowledge going to increase so much so that, well, I will realize how genius this game plan is that Putin has, man. No, and there is nothing genius there, right? Something else, and I don't know what that something else is. You know. Meanwhile, we have this report that Swedish Navy claims, by the way, that armed men have appeared on the ships of Russia's shadow fleet. Yes, this is also, by the way, also something that I predicted that would happen, and many of you, I'm quite sure also, that at some point PMC will be employed to secure the vessels that are directly or indirectly connected with Russia, right? From this so-called shadow fleet. And this picture is circulating now, by the way, on internet. You see armed person on the vessel that allegedly is from shadow fleet. Maybe not, but this was predictable. This was predictable that PMCs will be used to secure the vessels when possible, but fact itself that we being cornered by the Western elites so much so that in order to secure their commercial vessels, we now have to deploy PMCs, man. That's itself is quite telling, isn't it? If we didn't exercise restraint for this long, then maybe no one would dare to threaten the maritime routes and commercial shipping. Maybe no one would just simply dare to threaten these commercial vessels, and therefore there would be no need to deploy either Russian PMCs or to escort commercial vessels with the Russian Navy assets. You see, with this restraint, as I said like a million times, by the way, with this restraint policy that Kremlin is focused on, we are inviting more and more trouble on ourselves. Because every day, Western ruling class, every day of this restraint, further and further emboldens Western ruling class. And Western ruling class has no brakes, has no reverse gear. They only know how to push further, right? They only know how to bully as much as they possibly can and terrorize. And they will continue to do so. They will continue to do so because that's what they are, man. That's what Western ruling class is. They don't know any other way, period. So now PMC formations are there, but you tell me, dear friends, okay, PMC, some say it's PMC Wagner, some say something else, but even if PMC units are deployed on these vessels, if vessels come under attack of British terrorists, French terrorists, American terrorists, and they will attack with their naval assets, right? With warships, helicopters, special forces will be deployed. What is the chances of these PMC fighters that they be able to repel this attack? Are we sacrificing them potentially now? Because I mean, let's be real, by the way. I mean, if UK deployed their like couple of vessels and send their like on helicopters 30, 40, 50 fighters on helicopters on the boats, what are 3, 4, or 5 PMC fighters gonna do, man, against our 50? They will fight, okay. They will fight and die if necessary, but why we end up in this situation to begin with? You know, let's continue, by the way. Let's continue with some other news, and US is deploying additional air defenses to Middle Eastern before any strikes has begun on Iran. And at this point, I guess no one has any doubts no more that US Israeli or Western Israeli aggression against Iran is inevitable. And it's not just aggression against Iran, it's aggression against the whole of humanity, because as I said many times before, Western ruling class don't want to do some regime change only in Iran, by the way. They want to provoke civil war there on ethnic lines, when possible on sectarian lines, and they want to do the same in every other country of the region, and even provoke wars between the regional countries, right, in order to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf and through Hormuz Strait. So this Western Israeli attack on Iran is an attack on humanity, actually. And I have said before, by the way, that if Beijing and Moscow are good at reading a big picture, then they should never ever allow this attack to take place, because it's tremendously dangerous for Russia, for China, for whole world about it. Right? We cannot allow this to happen. We cannot allow Western ruling class to destabilize Middle East and to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf. We just cannot allow this to happen. But I'm not sure either Beijing or Moscow understands this, man. I'm not sure about anything, really. That's why I end up in journalism, I guess, because I'm questioning always. But yeah, more weapons, more assets being deployed there into Middle East, by the way. President of Serbia, I believe, said that in next 48 hours, US probably will attack Iran. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on date exactly, because how should I know? But attack itself definitely seems to be inevitable, because, well, even before, if you remember, by the way, even before 12-day war, I was saying that Western ruling class plans to destabilize the Middle East, to shut down navigation, right, in the Persian Gulf. So nothing that is happening in the Middle East is surprising to me personally. Literally nothing. But yes, Serbian President Vučić said that maybe in next 48 hours, US will attack her. How he knows. But yeah, we will see. We will see. TASS news agency, meanwhile, is reporting that, well, Trump responded on rumors that UN might shut down its headquarters in New York, maybe even move, and, you know how rumors are, by the way. Sometimes they spread like wildfire, and I guess these rumors end up in the White House also, and Trump commented on it. Let me give you some details. And this is quote, by the way. I don't think it's appropriate. UN is not leaving New York, and it's not leaving the United States, because the UN has a tremendous potential, Trump told the Politico, commenting on the New York Times' report, saying that senior UN officials warned that the World Organization could be forced to scale back operations, or even close its New York headquarters due to financial problems. And the UN is experiencing financial problems. You guessed why? Because a number of member states are not paying their share, right, to finance the UN. And you guess which country is leading among those that don't pay. You guessed it correctly, US, of course. So US don't want to pay for UN. But US want to use and abuse UN whenever they find it useful for them, their geopolitical agenda, and also they want headquarters of UN to stay in New York, I guess for prestige or something. I don't know, but if you ask me, by the way, UN should move its headquarters from US long time ago, years ago, because every now and then delegations from a number of countries, delegations of the diplomats, by the way, from numerous countries, are experiencing issues with their visas, right? US has weaponized the UN in some ways, right? And even Russian delegations, by the way. Even Russian delegations on numerous occasions had issues to go through UN to work, right? To participate in the work of this organization, because US was not issuing visas. So is it not logical to move headquarters elsewhere in a country where delegations not going to face this kind of craziness that Washington is demonstrating? It's logical, right? So UN, even though I don't care about UN, by the way, I think this is a garbage organization, absolute scam, right? And something that everyone is laughing about nowadays, right? Organization that was abused and decimated reputation-wise by the Western ruling class, so much so that yet again, I mean, no one is taking UN seriously no more, right? But nevertheless, there is no alternatives. There is no alternative, so UN probably will continue to exist until alternative emerges, and therefore I think headquarters of UN definitely has to be moved from US. Definitely, man. In Russia, for example, why not? I don't know. Let's move headquarters of UN into, I don't know, any Russian city, not necessarily Moscow, by the way. Traffic in Moscow is already quite something, so we don't really need more traffic. And you can imagine, by the way, how destructive traffic-wise UN can be. But there are other cities, right, that can deal with the situation. Yekaterinburg, by the way, I mean, great place for UN, I will say. Why not? Or any other, Vladikavkaz, by the way, in Northern Caucasus, capital of North Ossetia, Alania. Oh, Vladikavkaz can deal with UN headquarters, and that will bring some investments to the republic. That will be nice. So, yeah, but or any other country for that matter, but not in US, man. UN has to have a headquarters there in New York. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. Right? And also Donald Trump, and I'm gonna end this news segment on that. Hopefully, update is not too long. And I'm gonna end on a topic of Grammy, right? I don't watch it, by the way. There was a Grammy ceremony, by the way, yesterday. I did not watch it. I have no interest in any of these garbage events. Grammy, Oscar, Boscar, all that shit, man. I don't care. But it made some headlines. It made some headlines, and the host of the Grammy was the South African comedian. What is the name of that guy, man? Trevor Noah, who was funny like 10, 15 years ago, man. Let's be real. Some 10 years ago, Trevor Noah was actually funny, at least time to time. Now, I mean, nah, not really. And he went to say, this Trevor Noah, some jokes about Trump, about Clinton, and their time together on Epstein Island, right? And Trump was not happy about it. He wrote entire freaking post, by the way, on his True Social, devoted to this individual, Trevor Noah, and this Grammy and all that kind of stuff, right? And he threatened that he's gonna sue Trevor Noah over the claims that he was on Epstein Island. Trump reiterated that he never went to that island. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't, by the way, but he's clearly, he's there. He's an Epstein client, right? I have no doubts personally. That Trump is a dirty scum of humanity, right? God knows how many crimes this garbage individual committed. He's clearly forever gonna stay affiliated with Epstein, forever, by the way. And that's it, right? But maybe he committed crimes elsewhere, not necessarily on Epstein Island, but elsewhere in God knows in whichever ways, right? Investigation will never really reveal nothing about it. We'll understand this, right? U.S. political class, Western political class, Western ruling class, generally speaking, is total disgrace, isn't it? As I said, man, there is not a single decent human being there, and cannot be, right? System will never allow decent human to become a part of a system. It's just not happening, man. only way you're gonna be in the system if you are corrupt. Period. If you are compromised, that's the only way you can be part of the system. And Trump is a part of a system, so he is a compromised. In how many ways is anybody's guess, right? But he's clearly compromised, as all the others. But nevertheless, he threatened Trevor Noah that he's gonna sue him, and yeah, okay, let them meet each other, man. As if anybody cares, actually. So that's it. That's it. By the way, for today's first live stream. For today's first live stream. Hopefully it was interesting. Hopefully it was interesting, informative, and entertaining. There was, by the way, super chat and for on Rumble from Scooby, and also Scooby gifted a subscription to member of community premium subscription. Thank you very much, Scooby, for your support. And let me highlight now this. I will check in a second their Boosty also, by the way, just in case. And also let me remind you, dear friends, that no, what I did, man. Let me remind you that this evening, at 12, by the way, midnight, I will have a second news update, and they're going to be more news, obviously. They're going to be more news for that time. I was asked quite a number of times, by the way, to do this second live streams, and I tried before, by the way. It didn't work, but timing was different. This time around, I will launch second live stream at midnight. Maybe it will work better. I don't know. Maybe it will work better. So by the way, let me highlight now. Once again, thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat, dollar donation, and also gift of a premium subscription to a member of their community. And Scooby wrote on Rumble, by the way, giving away premium subscription. Comment in Rumble chat to get them. That's what Scooby wrote there. So if you are on Scooby already gifted. Scooby already gifted their premium subscription to a member of community. So thank you very much, Scooby, for supporter. And this is, by the way, this gift of premium subscription is a $5, basically $5 donation to the project. So, and I don't know how it works, but whenever there is a premium subscription, Rumble takes very little from premium subscriptions. From $5, I will get at least $4.50. But when there is donation, Rumble takes through super chat. Rumble takes 35% or maybe even higher. So this is a $5 donation from Scooby to project. Thank you very much, Scooby. And by the way, I guess we can finalize. It's 1 hour only. That's cool. Not too longer, but there was like slow beginning of the day news-wise. There was not really that much reports in the media. Let me react on this comment, dear friends, because it's newsworthy commentary from Nitish Kumar. Levan, how many days do you think the Rafah border will be open? Well, I don't know obviously, but hopefully border will stay open for. Hopefully border would not be closed. Is it realistic? I don't know. I have my doubts about it, but hopefully border will stay open as much as possible so that humanitarian aid will be delivered to Palestinian people. And this is newsworthy comment from Nidish. Thank you very much for this, because Rafah border, by the way, border crossing between Gaza Strip and Egypt was opened, and already there is a movement in place. Border crossing was opened first time this year, I believe, and it's a vital border crossing, obviously, for Palestinians. And I mean, hopefully it will stay open as long as possible. But I don't know, man. Maybe already today, by the way, Israeli settlers, this extremely aggressive part of Israeli society, maybe they will block this border crossing today. You know, also might be. Also interesting comment from Kiezer and Mart70. Hi Levan, any shortages with the fuel in Moscow? No, there is no shortages with fuel anywhere in Russia, by the way. That was Western propaganda at some point in the far east of Russia, by the way, in far east. In some southern regions, also in Crimea and a couple of southern regions, and also in some far east regions, there was some issues with their logistics, right, with supply of energy. And obviously someone filmed that there was a queue on some freaking country road on a station that was based on some country road, and Western propaganda took it as a greatest victory, that, oh, you see, there is a fuel shortages in Russia and people are queuing in to get some gas. In reality, by the way, situation was very different. And some measures were implemented everywhere, by the way, to make sure that fuel supply not gonna be disrupted, and there is no issues, by the way. Neither in Moscow. Well, in Moscow there was never issues with supply, but there were some issues, by the way, in some southern regions of Russia, and these rumors start circulating early autumn, isn't it? Right after summer season, when all the tourists, by the way, internal tourists that went to south and southern regions of Russia are touristic hubs, right? They're extremely popular among tourists, domestic tourists. And this started exactly at that point when all these tourists, by the way, start coming back deep inside the Russia, right? And of course that that increased the pressure on some companies, on some logistics, and there was issues, but it's resolved now, by the way. No one even talks about this stuff, right? And when it comes to Far East, when it comes to Far Easter, in that case, yet again, as it was the case in some southern regions too, your business is your business, right? If you are not managing your business well enough, and if you are unable to calculate how much supply do you need of the fuel today and months from now and 2 months from now, then if you manage poorly at one point, you're gonna end up in a situation when you just you're gonna run out of fuel, right? And in many gas stations, that's exactly what happened, rather, due to poor management. But issue was resolved eventually, and there is no energy shortages here in Russia. There was in Crimea, when at some point one person could buy only 20 or 30 liters of benzene, right, or fuel. That was like a couple of months ago, 2 months ago or something. Now there is no issues on that. And Also, Nidish Kumar is commenting, how difficult is it to maintain pressure up in the mountains for gas pipelines as they are planning Siberian pipeline? You mean Russia, China, this power of Siberia too? Where is the mountains there? There are no mountains. I mean, significant mountains. Those pipeline, this pipeline, power of Siberia, Nidish, if you are talking about this pipeline, will go from Russia to Mongolia, and from Mongolia to China, and I believe this power of Siberia will be directed towards northern eastern side. It's Chinese business where they're gonna use this gas, but there are no massive mountains there, really. They will avoid they're gonna be mountains, obviously. Mountains are everywhere, but there is nothing like Caucasus Mountains or the Himalaya Mountains, right? On the path of this power of Siberia too. They build their power of Siberia 1, isn't it? So it's doable. And when you have mountains, you don't necessarily have to push over the mountains pipe. Usually you go through canyons, right? Because, for example, there was a pipeline from Russia to Georgia, and though that pipeline never went on top of the mountains, pipeline just went on the lines of canyons, and when necessary, you just dig the tunnel through the mountain, and that's it. So technically, that's how it's done. There is no need to climb like 3, 4, 5,000 meters to build some pipeline network there. No. And dear friends, this is it, isn't it, dear friends? Hopefully you like the video. Hopefully you like the video. Let me check Boosty, by the way. I almost forget. So nothing from Boosty. Dear friends, if you want to support my work, you can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty. You can become premium subscriber on Rumble during the live streams. That Rumble premium subscription is there available. Also, you can use PayPal or Boosty to donate to the project. Links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. And before I go, let me remind you that this evening, late evening, by the way, at 12 at midnight, actually, I will launch second news update, and there are going to be much more news during that update. Let's see how they gonna go. Thank you all for your attention, for your support. Have a wonderful day, and take care. Bye.